as Marjorie Taylor Greene continues to rip into Donald Trump and take the MAGA base with her away from Donald Trump. Trump is even saying that he might not be MAGA anymore. Instead, he's calling it Republican or T-Publicans. Trump said there's a new word for Trump Republicans and it's not MAGA anymore. We shall be called T-Publican or T-Publican. Seriously, that's what he was posting. And Marjorie Taylor Greene has been doing post after post going after Donald Trump. And as we've heard that a lot of MAGA Republican Congress members are now considering resigning from the House of Representatives, Marjorie Taylor Greene responds in public and she goes, fact check true, but it's worse than even most people inside the DC bubble know when you talk to real Americans outside of the wicked snow globe of Washington, D.C.
That was Vice President J.D. Vance earlier today breaking the news of the D.C. shooting to soldiers at Fort Campbell. He was there to serve an early Thanksgiving meal to service members on the Army base, which happens to sit in a bright red congressional district in Tennessee, where a special congressional election is being held next Tuesday to replace Republican Congressman Mark Green, who retired in July. That district, the Tennessee 7th, voted for Trump just last year by 22 points. So this should be a breeze. And yet, check this out. New Emerson College survey shows Republican candidate Matt Van Epps leading Democrat Afton Bain by only 2% among likely voters. That is within the margin of error in a Trump plus 22 district. This comes a month after Republican losses at ballot boxes across the country. I'm joined now by two former Republican congressmen, Charlie Dent of Pennsylvania and Carlos Curbelo of Florida. Gentlemen, it's good to have you. In these specials, A, they're hard to poll. B, we don't have a ton of public polling, so you don't have like 15 polls you can throw into the average. But you got J.D. Vance down there. You got Trump posting about it on Truth Social, Charlie. And I think from the people I've talked to who are in the district, like there's generally a sense that this is a competitive race, which that alone seems to me to say something. What do you think?
Well, this race should be a layup for Republicans, as you indicated. But Republicans, since Trump was elected, Republicans have really struggled in special elections. Democrats have overperformed significantly. We saw two special elections for Congress in Florida where the Republican candidates who held those seats were winning by 30 plus points. And then the Republicans who replaced them won by 12 to 15 points. We saw a special election in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania for the state Senate. Very Republican area near my hometown. Never elected a Democrat since the Civil War, elected a Democrat. And so I think what we've seen, though, and you add that up with you couple that with what happened a few weeks ago in the off-year election. Republicans have a turnout problem. Trump is turning out Democrats big time. And you said it's hard to poll these districts, these special elections. They are hard to poll. We simply don't know what the turnout will be. But I would be nervous if I were a Republican just because, the turnout has been terrific for Democrats and pretty lousy for Republicans. So that's where we are right now. Republicans should win this district, Van Epps, but it's going to be awfully close.
Yeah, I mean, I think the expectation is that they will. It'd be sort of shocking if they didn't. Part of what's interesting, Carlos, here is that Mark Green, this guy kind of lost, but it was a little bit of a weird move, right? July of the first year in a term, you've been in Congress for a bit, to say, hey, I'm out. He just said, I'm leaving. I've got a private sector opportunity. It's too good to pass up. He went to some startup. You got him, he leaves. You got Marjorie Taylor Greene last week saying, I'm out. I'm not going to run for re-election, but I'm leaving. Then you've got all this buzz from members of Congress speaking to say, Jake Sherman and Punchbowl, that they're thinking of the same thing. What do you think about, how do you make sense of Republicans in the majority just piecing out, midterm?
Chris, this is remarkably similar to the environment that we were living back in 2017 and 18 as we approached the first midterm election of President Trump's first term. There was so much fatigue in the Congress. People left early that year. our friend who's on this panel with me, Charlie Dent, he retired early from Congress that year. A lot of members decided not to run for re-election because the mood was just so sour. Congress had become less and less relevant, and that has only gotten worse. So I do think you're going to see more Republicans heading for the exit, some early, which of course is extremely relevant this year, right? They only have a couple seat majority. We had a 40-seat majority back in 2018, so we could afford to lose some seats. We could afford to lose some members. This majority cannot afford to lose anyone, but people are frustrated. The executive branch continues making Congress less and less relevant. And to be fair, Congress continues making itself less and less relevant by refusing to take action. And guess what? People don't want to waste their time there anymore. So that's why they're leaving. It's a shame. It's sad. You know, I decided to stick in there and run for re-election, knowing that it was going to be very difficult. But some people have just had enough.
Charlie, I'm going to read you this quote from an anonymous member of Congress talking to Jake Sherman. He says, other GOP members messaged us over the weekend saying they, too, are considering retiring in the middle of the term. Here's one particularly exercised senior House Republican. This entire White House team has treated all members like garbage, all. More explosive early resignations are coming. It's a tinderbox. Morale has never been lower. Mike Johnson will be stripped of his gavel, and they will lose the majority before this term is out. What do you think of that?
Well, what I think this means is there are a lot of Republican members of Congress who have witnessed their Article I powers being usurped by the executive branch. And in some cases, the Congress has willingly surrendered their authorities to the executive branch. And I think enough of them have had enough. And that's why they're going to head for the exits. If any member is in a district that is what I would say less than an R+10, I would be very nervous right now. I'm just telling you that these elections are going into them. They know they're going to be running into a buzzsaw, and it's quite likely they will be in the minority in the next Congress. So I think some are really reconsidering whether or not they should go forward with an election plan. And I think you will see a rush to the exits. I can't tell you how many today, but I can see that the frustration level is very high. And why run if you just want to be in the minority and have your powers further diminished? You know,
part of it, Carlos, as a member of Congress, you are the representative for your people in your district. You don't have a boss, really. I mean, you're a sovereign in your own sort of way. Now, of course, you have party leadership, right? And that means a lot in the House. And they're going to, give you pressure on votes. They're going to whip you and all that stuff. It does seem to me, though, it's taken to a new level in this Congress that, like, Donald Trump basically being the boss of Congress in a way that we haven't really seen before. Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I mean, and this is another reason why members, especially the more independent-minded members, are so frustrated. Look at the use of the discharge petition, Chris. I mean, a lot of people in our country now know what a discharge petition is. That was not the case 10 years ago. It was rarely used, and it was almost never successful. I launched a discharge petition effort. It fell 2 signatures short. No one knew what it was when I was doing it. Now everyone does. Why? Because members are so frustrated that House leadership, Republican leadership in this case, dedicates so much of their time and efforts to suppressing member initiatives. The Speaker sometimes thinks he serves at the pleasure of the President of the United States. That's not how it works. The Speaker serves at the pleasure of the members of the House who elected him or her. And these members are sick and tired of being suppressed, of not being given the opportunity to even debate and have votes. I used to tell the leadership, hey, you don't have to guarantee that something's going to pass. That's my problem. Just give me the opportunity to debate, to convince people, and to have a vote. They're not letting them do it, so they're filing all these discharge petitions.
And censure resolutions. And censure resolutions. And you can't... And you can't vote on anything if you're not in session for over 50 days. I mean, this is a big problem. And I think Carlos is absolutely right that in too many cases, the House leadership, the Speaker in particular, acts more like a legislative director for the White House than as the leader of a separate independent branch of government.
Well, we'll see what happens on Tuesday after this holiday weekend. It's going to be interesting to watch those returns come in. And we'll also see if there are more retirements coming. Charlie Dent, Carlos Curbelo, thank you.
Trump's never-ending crisis. Trump governs inside a machine he built himself. A self-amplifying loop where every decision triggers a problem, and every problem triggers the same kind of decision that created it. This isn't a coincidence, it's structural. Trump approaches every challenge as if it's a confrontation. His instinct is always escalation. Add pressure, add threats, add enemies, and because escalation rarely solves real-world problems, the consequences inevitably circle back to him, demanding even more escalation. America is being run not by strategy, but by reflex. The loop begins with disruption. Trump announces a tariff, a threat, an accusation, or an executive order. The announcement is bold enough to dominate headlines and reassure his base that he is taking action. But the real world doesn't move on slogans. It responds with complexity. Businesses scramble. Governors resist. Foreign nations retaliate. Markets panic. These are predictable reactions, not surprises. Yet, when those reactions arrive, Trump reads them not as consequences of his choices, but as new attacks against them. So he returns to his only tool: more confrontation, more speeches, more blame, more pressure on the very systems attempting to stabilize the damage. The loop intensifies. A policy creates chaos. Chaos triggers defensiveness. Defensiveness creates a harsher policy, which produces greater chaos. It's a spinning wheel powered by its own momentum. Trump mistakes this endless motion for leadership, but movement isn't progress, and noise isn't governance. Every administration faces crises, but stable leadership absorbs shock and redirects it. Trump amplifies shock and multiplies it. His refusal to recognize his own role in the disasters he creates fuels the loop. He cannot step aside the cycle long enough to analyze it. He treats every backlash as sabotage, every criticism as betrayal, and every practical limitation as provocation. Instead of mapping solutions, he maps enemies. This loop has consequences beyond policy. It makes planning impossible. Agencies cannot prepare long-term strategies because the direction of government resets every time Trump feels challenged. Economies cannot stabilize because markets can't predict whether Trump will double down or reverse course. Foreign partners cannot negotiate because Trump's positions shift based on emotion, not doctrine. A nation trapped inside a feedback loop cannot chart a future. It merely survives the present. The tragedy is that Trump views the loop as proof of his strength. Every problem becomes another chance to fight. But the presidency is not meant to be a cage match with reality. Leadership requires the ability to interrupt cycles, not feed them. Trump cannot do that because the loop validates his worldview. Conflict is proof he is relevant. And so America spins faster and faster inside a machine that was never built to stop.